CPK, Communist Party of Kenya, Manukumkomole,
kabisa.
Wangololonge vipadi kata mateni, vipadi tudiwo.
Sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura 22, sikia nishaamua. Sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura 22, sikia nishaamua.
Anatambua mashida za vijana, pale pole anajenga uwanja, ye uokolea atiko matanga, pale mingine amejenga didarasa. Hao wengine wametupima tu sana, kazi zao zote wakuzifanya, tukikula mfupa kula nyama, vitambejia ile ganji wametunyang'anya.
Vijana wote situko na buka, vako zetu zote anazita mbua, 22 ni endo tunachagua, juma shida zetu hawezi kuruka, msiwaitens mawera zita kuwa, team CPK hatunaga tupu, tuna kamsla hawezi kutuchuja, hao wengine watoibuka ndiyo buda.
Uongozi fiti tajenga hizo rodi, vitu amefanya mtaa atubongi, ye ni msimpo anava vishoshi, ye uokolea mayouth kama broski. Uongozi fiti tajenga hizo rodi, vitu amefanya mtaa atubongi, ye ni msimpo anava vishoshi, ye uokolea mayouth kama broski.
Sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura 22, sikia nishaamua. Sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura, sinibuka tunapea kura 22, sikia nishaamua.
Tuko nyalobiro walunge gandi hiro, jomi badhi yoseti umendeleo bosiro, bokero nyakachiro kobiwe walilo, tije wabodio jofisade maboringo, kniamendo finyo kiboneno hiro, buka emenchunjo piny, ochungne maendeleo makiny, kura wabomie moko piny, okonyo nyithikiye ochulo nyaka fees, gik ma wachogi oka wuonda magiril, kendo gemkoni walunge gani king, kik mosetimo dongo dongo nge matino, konyo nyithikiye ochulo nyaka fees, gik ma wachogi oka wuonda magiril, kendo gemkoni walunge gani king, kik mosetimo dongo dongo nge matino.
All right, hello everybody, welcome. Come on in, sit on down. All right, how are you guys doing? Today is Sunday. Today is April 2nd, 2023. Welcome to the Revolutionary Blackout Network. My name is James Trotlow. It's so good to see all of you on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybe show is every single Sunday on RBN at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also catch me on RBN Live on Tuesdays at 4 and the Sabby and Jaybe show on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can go to my channel as well. I do have my own channel called the Jaybe Font channel. You guys can catch me on every single Tuesdays at 2, and I also do readings throughout the week. So if you guys want to catch that, that'd be great. So thank you so very much for tuning in today. So good to see all of you here. By the way, just to let you all know, if you guys would like to, you guys can also go to our Substack. If you want to be put on our mailing list, you can go to Revolutionary Blackout Network on our Substack. Just give a search there and you can get that, so you can get our email notifications, because you know that the notifications on YouTube are not so reliable. So go to Substack and you can go there. It is actually scrolling down below. So you guys, all you have to do is just go there and get your notifications. By the way, thanks to all the patrons on Patreon and also all the memberships. We do have $3.99 memberships here as well on RBN. So thank you so much to everyone who contributes to us being able to get this information out there and to grow as activists as well in this space. So it means a lot to every single one of us, especially since we celebrated our 2-year anniversary yesterday. So thank you so very much. Also, just to let you guys know, we do raise money for our fundraiser for our graphics designer, Aaron. And if you would like to help contribute to Aaron doing the graphics, you can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout, or you can go to our Cash App, $Mutual Aid Forever. So you can do that as well. So thank you so very much, Aaron, for all the wonderful work you do as well. Now, as I always do, I like to go to the chat and give a warm welcome to everybody that has joined in. Of course, started off with that song. That song was actually done by the Communist Party of Kenya, which that's what I started out with because I wanted to celebrate the people of Kenya. And what better than the comrades in Kenya? So that's why I started off with that. And it was a bop. It was a jam. Good to see you, Miguel. Miguel up in here saying, peace. Good to see you. We have Steve Adeptus. Good to see you also in the chat. Eric Gray says, sup, y'all, and gotta love how irrational and completely insane the United States actually is. Capitalism has run out its usefulness. CBC voter coming in, giving me cups of tea and peace. Good to see you. I don't have tea. I have some water. I use the same water bottle. I just refill it. But I have water here. So that's what I have today. But thank you so much, CBC voter. Good to see you in the chat as always. We have Rulon coming in with fire. Good to see you, Rulon. Welcome as well. Good to see you here. All right. Who else do we have as well? We have Anthony coming in with hearts. Good to see you, Anthony. Welcome to the show. Good to see you also. Pachico saying, yay, Jaybe. Good to see you, Pachico. Nice to have you. We have Ryan coming in saying, what's up, everyone? All right. We have Wadi coming in saying, hey, everybody. All right. Good to see you here. All right. We have I Eat Paste saying, good afternoon, comrades. I Eat Paste. That's funny. All right. We have Felena says, hi, hi, hi. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? All right. We have Jamie coming in saying, whoop, whoop. Got a whole lot of too fat. Whoop, whoop. Anyway, start singing some of this old school trip hop. Coming in with Dana Fairbanks saying, hello, peeps. Good to see you in here, Dana. All right. Do we have anybody on Rockfin yet? Yes, we do. Let's get on there just to say our hellos to Rockfin. All right. Hey, you guys remember when Kevin Hart said, all right, all right, all right. You gonna learn today. Oh, gosh. I am so silly. Let's enlarge this just a little bit so everybody can read what's said. Oh, that's a little bit too big. That's what she said. Let's go. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me today. Maybe it was the smoothie I had this morning, but oh well. Y'all have to deal with me now. Y'all watching anyway. Anna Mayer says, get down with your bad self, Jaybe. Thank you, Anna. Good to see you, as always, in the Rockfin side, on the rock side, on the rock side of the force. Rock side of the force you are. All right. So, on with the show. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, what's on the thumbnail that we have here. The thumbnail, it says, Kenyans are fed up. What are they fed up about? We're going to talk about that. And then the other story we'll be getting into today is Medicaid loss. So we're going to be getting into who is losing Medicaid and who has lost Medicaid so far. So this is going to be two interesting stories that I found that we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be going halfway across the world to Kenya. There have been protests. I know a lot of people have been focusing on the protests in France. There have been protests in Netherlands. There have been protests in Germany. But there have also been protests in African countries. And these protests are the people rising up and saying that enough is enough. So a lot has been happening in Kenya, particularly in the capital, Nairobi. So we're going to get into this. And one of the things I'm going to share with you guys right now is an article, and this is from the AP. It says anti-government protests in Kenya hit Nairobi for second week. So this was late last week. As you can see here, these are the Kenyan protests that are happening right now. It says thousands of anti-government protesters marched on the streets of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on Monday, despite the government's declaration that the protests are illegal. Remind you of someplace? Opposition leader Raila Odinga joined protesters on the western side of the capital, where his convoy attracted thousands of protesters, and he addressed them at various stops, calling for electoral justice and reduced prices for food items. Police used water cannons and tear gas to disperse supporters. Police Chief Jaybe Kume insists that the protests are illegal, but Odinga says Kenyans have a right to demonstrate. Odinga and his party, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, are leading the protests against the rising cost of living and calling for President William Ruto's resignation, saying he wasn't validly elected in last year's election. I have to be very careful with this, though. This subject, especially that last part. Protests occurred last week, and Odinga has urged his followers to take to the streets twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. More than a dozen civil society groups have a joint statement expressed concern over police declaring Monday's protests illegal and urged authorities to uphold constitutional right and peaceful demonstrations. Ruto over the weekend urged Odinga to face him directly and stop terrorizing the country, in quotes. So starting off, this sounds a lot like something that happened in this country. But really, this is like what they said was they found the shift in administrations illegitimate in Kenya, and as well as the rising cost of living. People are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. So that's what's going on in Kenya. But it's not exactly like here in the United States. But at the same time, people are tired. And they want to have a shift in government. Let's continue on. Odinga's plan last week's protest was to march to the president's offices at the State House, but police erected barriers to prevent public access, and motorists were directed to alternative routes. Ruto is currently out of the country visiting Germany. Of course. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua shared photos of himself at his office early Monday morning and urged Kenyans to report to work. So it's like, don't protest. Just go to work. Go to work and push this economy forward, even though it's not working for you. Nairobi's central business district remained calm, but most businesses were closed on Monday due to this uncertainty over demonstrations and if there would be violence. There were reports of some violence, that they call violence, directed at Odinga and his supporters. Some people raided a farm in the outskirts of the capital owned by a family of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, cutting trees and taking away sheep, according to the local media reports. The former president supported Odinga in 2022 elections. So this is been going on. There is some video that has been going on as well. And I'm going to be showing that in just 1 second. Oh, found it. Let me enlarge this just so you guys have that. So I'm ready to go. So if you guys don't follow the International Magazine on Twitter, I urge you to do so. This also gives some what's going on in around the world, especially when it comes to, rebellions like this. This is also very important to take into account as we observe what's going on around the world. So this is what's been going on in Kenya. They are really just doing what many people around the world have been doing within the last couple of months, really. Mass protests been going on, and because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And this is really due to capitalism. I mean, the West has been pushing, not just austerity within their own governments, but also governments like Kenya. Kenya is actually a former colony of Britain. And so they are sick and tired of really their administrations being lackeys of the West and making it so that their people are subject to austerity, and there is wealth disparities in different countries in Africa, including Kenya. And so people are tired. And so they're rising up. They're realizing what we all know is that the numbers are with them. The numbers are with the people. And this is why you have support from the Communist Party in Kenya as we speak. Now, they took a very measured response to this, but I also want to give attention to that as well. And let me get that up for you guys, because what they say is actually very interesting regarding what the movement that the opposition leader is pushing forward. Why'd you do that? All right. Sorry. I'm talking to my computer. My computer is a little wonky. Or either I'm user error. I'm the wonky one. Oh, well. So this is from the Communist Party of Kenya. It says, through the Communist Party of Kenya supports, though the Communist Party of Kenya supports the protest against the raging inflation, they also issued a warning against supporting opportunist leaders like Odinga. So this is what is going on. So they support the protest, but they warn, it's like, Odinga is a opportunist, so be careful. And so with that, you'll have some people who will be protesting military operations. They will protest things that the government is doing which really displaces working people. And you may have some figures that may be opportunists that really aren't for the people, or you may encounter political figures that do not have our interests at heart. But at the same time, you see people who are out in the streets who are protesting what the government is doing, and rightfully so. Case in point, let's say hypothetically you have someone like Donald Trump that talks about, needing to end the war in Ukraine. And there is agreement there. The proxy war in Ukraine needs to end because it really serves us no good. But just like, even though he's correct on that issue, be careful. Because he may even say, get out in the streets and say, oppose this proxy war. Yes, get out in the streets and oppose the proxy war. But make no mistake, somebody like Donald Trump is an opportunist. And he is a racist and he's a fascist enabler. And so therefore, you only take what he says with a grain of salt, but you don't follow him, right? Because he's basically just like Biden, except for he's just playing the part of being on the opposite side so that he can garner more support. So this is what I take from this and from what the caution that's being pushed by the Communist Party in Kenya is saying. And so I think that's also very important. Because support people, be wary of leadership. See what I mean? And I think that's important for us to keep in mind. So there's also some words from members in the Communist Party of Cuba that have been in the media and Kenyan media, and I would like to give some attention to that. And this is some thoughts that were given by Booker Ngesa Omole. And he is part of the Communist Party in Kenya. He's the National Vice Chairperson and National Organizing Secretary of the Communist Party in Kenya. So we're going to give him a listen and see what he has to say regarding the protests in the streets, particularly in Nairobi. First, he says, people don't wish to go to the streets to protest, but the government has forced them to dramatize a failure in policy. Anything the masses will get from this government will be a product of the struggle. So let's get into it.
There is a logic in protesting. What Arnold is falling for is the Kenya Kwanza logic. They want to make us look like, people go to the street because they are willing. That you wake up tomorrow and you are having a holiday, so you are going to go to the streets. So you are enjoying yourself in the streets, battling them. The police. For me, I think that needs to be replaced by a new logic. And the new logic is the pro-people logic, that the people rise to go to the streets because a small minority has imposed their will upon them, and they cannot continue suffering anymore. So the question you're asking, my colleague here, that will that make things any better?
Yeah, what is the
but we're already dying in our houses. What is it? What is the logic of staying home, hoping that things will be better, while in actual sense, life is getting much harder for the majority of the people, while the minority continue to, to burn money and live in luxury.
President.
So when we organize ourselves to go
Yes.
to the street. We go to the street to dramatize a failure in government policy.
All right.
And we ask the Kenyan people to join us to go to the street. That street, when we go to the street, you're telling us, do not disrupt people. Of course, the street action is meant to disrupt. In fact, the actual thing is that at that very moment when we are going to the street, we expect that if the government want to prevent us from going to the street, then the government must start to roll out a policy to give us dignity. Failure to which, then they have to meet us in the streets.
Let me tell
Meet us in the streets. Woo! Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So yeah, that's what he basically said. Ryan Wagner, yeah, this is a great point. He says, it's a simple question. Would you rather live on your knees in chains or die on your feet fighting for your freedom? And yeah, that's basically what is going on here. So that is a very good point that was brought on. He said we're literally dying at home, so why are we going to sit at home and die at home, whereas we can fight for ourselves in the streets, fight for our lives in the streets instead of dying at home? So I think that's something that really we need to bring these points here at home in the United States. And the fight just doesn't have to be going to blows in the streets. The fight can also be making power dynamics within our material needs. So like a lot of us always talk about, and we brought this up yesterday during our anniversary stream, was regarding things like mutual aid, right? Building dual power, building mutual aid. One of the things that I would like to do, especially here in my state of Florida, is starting to help people get resources for housing, especially people who may be, in fear of eviction. Because one of the things that that trips me out is that if you are on the verge of being evicted, let's say you just don't have enough money to cover your rent, and so you don't want to even start the eviction process because that's an expensive process that's brought on to you as a renter. But these foundations will not help you until the eviction process starts. And so then what is the person to do? They basically have to allow themselves to get to the point to be on the verge of getting kicked out of their home in order to receive help. It's like when you're cooking on a grill, and if many of you have cooked on a grill, and your hand is not on the fire, your hand's not actually on the hot grill, but it's right there, you can still get burned because it's that hot. I have been at grills where literally less than 6 inches away, your hand away from the heat, you start to get burned, right? You start to cook your hand. And the thing is like, they really want you to get to that point where you're basically 2 inches from that heat in order to ask for help. When in reality, we're not trying to get even that close. And I don't think it's feasible. I don't think it's right that anybody should get that close. And so this is why I want to set up, mutual aid programs that help people, even further down the line. Let's say they have like 2 weeks to pay their rent and they don't have that. They don't have it. It's like, okay, yeah, we're not even going to allow you to get to the eviction process, because then you have to pay the court fees, the attorney fees, you have to pay the late fees and all that other stuff. It's like, no, we don't even want you to get there. And so there are things like that. There are people who are trying to help feed people who are homeless or people who are food insecure, that type of mutual aid. There are people, maybe you're in healthcare, maybe you're a tech, maybe you're a nurse. Maybe you can use your skills to help people for free who may have simple issues. Maybe you're a nurse practitioner. And so getting these mutual aid organizations off the ground so that we can be able to help people so that they will have less dependence upon these systems so that we can build a groundswell of support. And so this is one of the reasons why I think it is absolutely necessary to fight on this front as well. And so, what this gentleman Booker is saying, I fully am on board with. There's also some other things that he said as well that I also want to give some attention to. Let me go to my list. If anybody remembers, in oh, that's a good point. If anybody remembers sorry, I'm losing my track. If anybody remembers, it is important to belong into organizations, right? And that is what's really important. And so, actually, let me see this. I know this is kind of unethical of me, but I want to see this. Just got contact from him. Great. I'll be trying to get an interview with Booker Ngesa Omode. So once that happens, then I will let you guys know. Just got a DM from him. So that was great. I wanted to share what's going on in the streets right now. And then I also have another point that I want to show you. Yes, here we go. So this is going to be talking about the protesters that are clashing with police in Nairobi. So let's get into this.
So there's still a lot of things that may happen in the next few hours. Maybe Raila Odinga will show up. Maybe Martha Karua, the deputy, will show up. Maybe there'll be more activity with the police and the protesters. We're just waiting to see what happens in the next few hours.
Okay, thank you for that.
So, yeah. And if you guys look at the streets that's going on right now, does it remind you of the United States, and especially during the George Floyd protests? People are fed up. People are fed up with the amount of inequality that has been going on, the rising cost of living, whether it's food, healthcare, housing. People are just done. And can you blame them? And this is the rise of, the working class in places like Kenya that we also need to express our solidarity with. Because the workers' movement is not just in the United States. It goes way beyond our borders. It's across the world. It is international. Solidarity with the workers around the world. This is why the phrase "workers of the world unite," that's why it's so important, because we have to stop this inequality, this issue that the West has been trying to dominate the world, on behalf of the corporate dictators. So this is why it's so important. Let me see. I have this article as well. And I was looking up because I was just like, the US is trying to project more influence on Kenya. Why? Why is the US trying to project more influence on Kenya? Let me show you this. If you just look up on Google, what are Kenya's natural resources? It says the natural resources that are found in Kenya include limestone, soda ash, salt, gemstones, fluorite, zinc, diatomite, oil, gas, gold, gypsum, wildlife, and hydropower. So there are natural resources that are central to Kenya that they also want as well. And the interesting fact is that there was a statement that was made by Booker Ingesa Omole regarding one of our senators. And you guys take a look at this. This is actually going to be very interesting. So when I heard him say this name, I was like, why is it talking about our senator in this country? Let's go.
And the other thing of Chris Coons, by the way, Chris Coons is not a friend of the Kenyan people. He is actually one of the enemies of the Kenyan people. He supports, the imperialist policies in this government. And Chris Coons, for a fact, brings out what I call the particularity of the head of opposition and the people in government, William Samoei Ruto. They are not being controlled locally. In fact, Ruto, and through his deputy president, is complaining about his policies or unnecessary pressure from their foreign partners to negotiate with Raila Amolo Odinga. This Ruto administration have so many policies that have been imposed upon them by foreign interest and foreign powers. We were discussing about the issue of the school system, the curriculum system. We saw the hands who was financing it. We cannot say that Chris Coons will be unsuccessful. In fact, as long as President Ruto remains, Eurocentric or Western-centric in terms of determining its goal, then I can assure you that Chris Coons is going to have his way, is going to put the interest of Raila Amolo Odinga and the interest of William Samoei Ruto, not the interest of the Kenyan people. What we are saying is that the direct interference of the domestic policy by foreign powers is something that we cannot tolerate from the Communist Party of Kenya. We just want the Kenyan people to take charge of their destiny and be able to come up with, issues that affects the majority of the people.
Light or not? I'm not sure you're just supporting your Chinese, counterparts. You've really attacked the West.
No. Surely. No. In fact, when you talk about the Chinese, the question was not about the Chinese. The question was about the economic model that continues to spur growth in the world. That is the economic model of the China
All
government. But we are not talking about, because if you talk about the Chinese, then you are falling for the anti-Chinese racist and cynical propaganda that is being propped by the American common interest in our country today.
Thank you,
in fact, the
Honorable
black people, the African people have a lot of historical
Chris Coons, he says. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware? Interesting. Chris Coons was recently in Kenya. Why would he be in Kenya? Why are you in Kenya, Chris? Because wasn't Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, in Africa trying to charm Africans into uniting more with the United States? Let's get into that. Let's take a look-see. Got an article to share. So this says Raila Odinga meets U.S. Senator Chris Coons in Nairobi. This was 3 days ago. There they are. Right? It says Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga on Wednesday, March 29th, met United States Senator Christopher Coons, who is in Nairobi, Kenya, to hold talks with national leaders. Talking to his Twitter page on Wednesday, Odinga said the talks between him and Coons, who is a senator from Delaware, were successful. We had a fruitful discussion on the importance of upholding the Constitution and the rule of law, and he agreed to keep the channels of communication open. Isn't this the opposition leader that's encouraging people to be out in the streets? This is interesting. This is really interesting. Let's continue. So here's Chris Coons with Odinga. Says Coons is known for having keen interest in Kenya's political affairs. In August 2022, he visited the country and asked the top leadership to preside over peaceful elections and a smooth handover of power. Before meeting Odinga on Wednesday, the American lawmaker held talks with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, sorry, I'm having trouble with that name, in Nairobi. This morning, this was a couple days ago on March 29th, I hosted a delegation from the U.S. led by Senator for Delaware, Christopher Andrew Coons, for consultations towards strengthening ties between the two nations, especially in trade, security, democracy, among other key issues of mutual interest. Says, on behalf of President William Ruto, I thank President Biden and the people of the United States of America through the Senator of being critical partners in development of dealing with a host of challenges, including famine and drought. The Senator's visit to Kenya comes at a time when Odinga is leading protests against President Ruto's administration, accusing it of doing nothing to improve the living standards of Kenyans. Odinga also accuses Ruto of engineering electoral malpractice in the August election that locked him out of the State House. So it seems like Chris Coons is playing both sides. opposition side as well as the government side in Kenya. While I do support the people going out into the streets and making demands of their government and trying to have a more equal and equitable government, something smells fishy here. I don't know about you, but whenever the United States gets involved in something, something stinks. Something stinks to high heaven. And I don't trust it. And this is why the Communist Party in Kenya said, get out in the streets, yes, but be wary of the people leading the protests. See what I mean? And this is why we need to be very careful about people who are calling for us to get out in the streets. Yes, that's important. But who's doing the calling? Right? And what are their goals? What are their motives? See what I mean? Because every single movement has had somebody co-opt it in some way. Hell, we talk about defunding the police, and they'll talk about, oh, well, yeah, we did this locally. We actually took some of the money from police and put it in here. And it was only just for a temporary thing. And the police are still doing the same things that they've always been doing. Black Lives Matter protests. What did the government do? They put on kente cloth and they took a knee, a rickety knee, on the marble floors of the Capitol in order to show solidarity with Black people. Even though we're still getting murdered in the streets, our healthcare disparities are still triple that of white people. We still haven't gotten reparations for what's going on, you know, for the last 400 years. We still have disparities as far as housing. What about what's going on in the border, right? The border, you still have kids that are still in cages. Some of those same people decided, well, I'm going to go down to the border and I'm going to give the President Trump a piece of my mind. This is unacceptable. And then guess what? They went down to the border. They cried. They cried at the border. Then Biden comes in. Kids are still at the border. Have they traveled back down to the border to protest? Did they give Biden a piece of their mind? No, they did not. Why? It was a political issue for them. It wasn't a policy issue and it wasn't a human issue. The same people that told you to get out into the streets to protest Trump should have been the same people to tell you to get out in the streets and continue to protest against Joe Biden. But as soon as Biden got into power, guess what? Shh. That's not necessary. We don't need that. Just sit down. Sit down. Sit down. There are people out there who will tell you, we need to protest this government. We need to fight. And they'll say, I'm a fighter. Just get me into Congress. Just get me into the House. Just get me into the presidency. And I promise I'll fight for you. Talk is cheap. also ask the question, what have they been doing on the ground to help people before they even got to office? They have to show us that they are that person before they even get there. But they haven't. They don't. Be mindful of who is trying to lead the movements, especially people who are working to make themselves, to put themselves in the front, to put themselves in the limelight, to make it seem like they are the leaders. If the person wants to be the leader, chances are they're not the right one. They're not somebody that should be leading. Typically, the right one is the person that doesn't want to be. Typically, that's really who it should be. Person that actually doesn't want the job. That's fighting for the right cause, for the right reasons. That actually does things on the ground. That's actually typically the person who should be leading movements and using their leadership to uplift the people so that they can lead themselves. And they just want to be an advisor, just a voice of reason. Because ultimately, we save us. We don't need a leader in that way. So yeah, let me go to the chat really quick. That's what's going on in Kenya. And there's more that was said, but I want to make sure I get to the other story as well. Andrew says there were tons of opportunists in the George Floyd protests in Seattle 2020 who took tons of money from people because people were socially isolated, segregated enough not to know any better. That's just true. Thank you so much for that, Andrew. Violin says the banks give orders to government. Government obeys. People get angry at government. Banks laugh all the way to the bank. Rinse, repeat ad nauseum. Thank you so very much as well. Andrew says the interest rate increase in the U.S. is hitting the global south even harder than the U.S. because they have all the U.S. dollar dominated debt to the IMF and other private lenders. Pacheco says tribal divisions purposely cultivated and exacerbated by the British are part of what's going on here. Thank you so very much. Reality Revolution, thank you so much for the super chat. Reality Revolution says, hey, Jaybe, I'm late, but I made it. White is definitely your color. Or lack thereof. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Janice says, listen to Sabotage doesn't matter anyway, written as if from a weapons dealer point of view. Disturbing but kind of fitting for topic of playing both sides. Thank you so very much. Creative Experiment says, only Ted Cruz visited the border recently. Really? Ted Cruz went to the border? It's kind of funny because, okay, Ted Cruz will go to the border while Biden's in power, but he won't go to the border while Trump's in power. Both of these parties, they are all partisans. That's all they are. They only express opposition when the opposite party's in power and the administration. That's all it really is. They really do not care. Because if you really cared, then you would have stayed there even when the next administration or regime came into power. When the Trump regime was in power, guess what? They were out there. But then when the Biden regime came in, they were nowhere to be found. And now you got somebody who is in favor of the Trump regime out there. But we're never out there when the Trump regime was in power. And it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No consistency whatsoever. And this is why I say they're all one party. They're one uniparty. They're one hegemonic party that constantly works for the same boss. Be careful who you listen to. Because the thing is that if they are truly for the people, they will make that abundantly clear. You have these people who constantly try to shift you back into these ineffectual parties, and they are ineffectual on purpose. And they will try to shift you to the parties. Mark my words. And you guys can clip this if you want and post this on Twitter. I don't care. But there will be people that will come after, especially people like us at RBN, for going against the Democratic Party and saying that they are just like the Republican Party. They will be supporting the challenger to the Democratic primary and saying, well, we need to do this because they're the best we got. They're the best we got, and we have no other choice. When in fact, we do have choices. You have choices. You do. There's always a third option. Do not let them tell you otherwise that there isn't. Because once they tell you there is no other choice, then guess what? They got you. And you're going to keep going down the same direction. Look. There are two roads that lead to our destruction. They are the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Two roads that lead to our destruction. There are other roads that lead in the opposite direction. Those could be organizing a working class movement. Mutual aid movements that support the working class movements. That get out of this so that we can build a foundation so that when it comes time for us to truly change the government in a fundamental way, we can make it happen because the apparatus is already in place. Rick Solis says they're all performative political actors. Exactly. Mark says, I just wonder how the U.S. establishment will react if, let's say, a member of the Russian Duma came to the U.S. and supported the opposition party. Technically, they're making it seem like that, especially with the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement. They were in contact with somebody from Russia who is anti-imperialist. And so the FBI raided them thinking that they're colluding with the Russian government when that's not the case. Shout out to the African People's Socialist Party. They're doing great work on the ground, by the way. Oh my God. Creative Experiment says, after Ted Cruz visited the border, Tom Hartman said Kids in Cages was staged by Border Patrol to make Biden look bad. Be careful who you listen to. Be careful. Look at the actual facts on the ground. Violence says they got raided for, oh yeah, you're calling about the African People's Socialist Party. Yes, they got rated for providing actual services to people, including doula training for pregnant women. Yes. In fact, I actually had Akile Enai from the African People's Socialist Party on my channel, and I interviewed her. That was a great interview. If you guys want to catch that, I actually interviewed her on my channel. So if you guys go ahead and watch my channel and check that out. Weedy Gonzalez said, Weedy Gonzalez. Sorry, I just caught that. Oh, God, thank you. It says, didn't Obama and Biden administration build those cages, though? Yes, they did. You're right. Absolutely right. Just checking to see. All right. So I'm going to. It made me laugh. It made me laugh. It made me laugh. All right. So, did you guys like the stream yet? Go ahead, hit the like button. Do that for me. As well as if you have not subscribed, we are just about to hit 32,400. So, we need one person. If you haven't subscribed yet, you be that one person. You know. Or if 101 of you who are watching want to do that, go ahead. Subscribe as well. Now, also, just to let you guys know, we also fundraise for our graphics designer, Erin. We want to make sure that she gets the money that she demands. And so if you guys go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout or Cash App $ Mutual Aid Forever, so that we can also make sure to pay Erin adequately for her services. Thank you so very much to Erin for all the work you do, as well as all the people in the back office. Hi, good to see all of you. Mwah, love you. Now we're going to be going on to our next story. Medicaid loss. As someone who has Medicaid, yes, I have Medicaid. I have Medicare and Medicaid, right? This is concerning for me. This is concerning for many of you who watch. For many of us who are on disability, who also may get Medicaid, especially those of us who are lower income, this is concerning deeply. Medicaid is a state program that is covered in all 50 states for people who are of lower income status to receive health care in their respective states. It is a means-tested program for the poor people in order to have health care. But it has a lot of flaws. But now millions of people are going to be stripped of their Medicaid insurance. And this is going to be our primary story. So I'm going to be sharing this article first, and then I also have a video to show you guys as well. By the way, let me put this article in the chat about Chris Coons visiting Kenya, just so you guys have that really quick. And that website is the actual archive so that you guys won't be blocked by the paywall. Let me do this really quick right here so I have that. One more. I need one more. Okay. All right. So damn, Reality Revolution, you are right. White does look good on me. All colors look good on me, but white was a nice choice. All right, so, and this is scary for a lot of people. It says these 5 states will be the first to kick residents off Medicaid starting in April. So this started yesterday. Let me enlarge this just to make sure. All right, kiddos. And their font is small. It says millions of Americans are at risk of losing their Medicaid coverage in coming months, but residents in Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, New Hampshire, and South Dakota will be the first to bear the brunt of the determinations. States have been barred by Congress from winnowing their Medicaid rolls since the COVID-19 pandemic began. That prohibition ends on Saturday, and some states are moving much more swiftly than others to kick off those deemed ineligible for public health insurance program for low-income Americans. That worries advocates who say speed will result in eligible residents being incorrectly terminated. Also, it could hamper shifting those who no longer qualify to other types of coverage. Joan Alker says this is the fable of the tortoise and the hare. Taking time is absolutely going to result in a better outcome for eligible children and families to remain covered. So speed is a big concern. The states are rushing to get these people off the rolls, basically. It says the 5 states will start cutting off coverage in April, followed by 14 more states in May. By the way, my state's going to be one of the 14 in May. And 20 additional states plus the District of Columbia in June. All states must complete their redeterminations over the next 14 months. So it says Americans could start losing Medicaid coverage in April. So this is Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, New Hampshire, and South Dakota. As you guys can see, actually, let me shrink this just a little bit so you guys can see the full map. Okay. So this is what's going to happen. So in April, it's those 5 states. Then in May, to 14 states. So as you can see, in June is going to be extended to those states, and then July, and then 1 state in October, which is Oregon. So this is going to be happening in the next few months. Okay. Enlarge this again so that people can see words clearly. Whoop. Hell. It's all right. I'll do it now. Make sure. This is around 15 million people could be dropped from Medicaid, according to various estimates. Those 7 million folks could find coverage elsewhere. Others may still be eligible, but could be terminated for procedural reasons, such as not completing renewal forms. Those at risk include at least 6.7 million children. As Medicaid enrollment has ballooned since March 2020, when lawmakers passed the Families First Pandemic Response Act, I had to be careful what I say, which prevented states from involuntarily removing anyone from coverage. In exchange, Congress boosted states' federal Medicaid match rates by 6.2 percentage points. The provision was initially tied to a national public health emergency, but lawmakers changed that as part of the federal spending bill that passed in December. In addition to being able to start conducting terminations in April. States will receive an enhanced federal match through the rest of the year, though it will be phased down over time. More than 92 million Americans were enrolled in Medicaid in the Children's Health Insurance Program, also known as CHIP, in December, up 31% since February of 2020, according to the most recent data available for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. So this shows about children's Medicaid enrollment. Let me shrink this just a little bit. Shrink to the size of a lima bean. Charlie Sheen, Ben Vereen, shrink to the size of a lima bean. If you guys remember that from Pinky and the Brain. So it shows this is how many people were enrolled, and it shot up. So that's a lot of people. But that's a lot of people who received more health care. Right? So, and here's the thing that gets on my nerves. So, it says reviewing the eligibility of all those enrollees will be a monumental task for state Medicaid agencies, many of which are also contending with slim staffing. To gear up, they're hiring new employees, temporary workers, or contractors to bring back retirees, according to a recent survey conducted by Georgetown. So here's my problem with all this. And I have some notes. If we had a nationalized healthcare system, you would not have to worry about these monumental tasks for checking for eligibility. As soon as you're born, you're covered, and as soon as you die, you lose your coverage. It's just that easy. Capitalism makes things like healthcare more complex and difficult. Here's my question. If somebody's income increases, could it also be commensurate with the rising cost of living, which means that they're still in the same place economically as they were before? Having these states adjusted the index that measures financial eligibility, I'd argue that anyone in Florida making below $55,000 per year is low income and should be eligible for Medicaid, SNAP, housing assistance, etc. But that's not the way it is. It feels like they're keeping the same eligibility incomes, even though it costs more to live, and some are getting priced out of social services as well. Am I wrong here? Why do I say that? Well, let's go close to the end of this. Okay. Says not waiting for Medicaid expansion to begin. South Dakota will start terminating Medicaid enrollees in April. Though some low-income adults may become eligible again in July when the state's Medicaid expansion program begins. Voters approved the broadening of Medicaid to low-income adults in the ballot box in November over the objections of Republican governor and legislator. The 152,000 residents were enrolled in Medicaid in January, an increase of more than 30% from March 2020, according to the state's Department of Social Services. But more than 22,000 people appear to be ineligible currently. The agency said in a frequently asked questions that will prioritize reviewing folks who are most likely to be ineligible because they no longer meet a coverage group or their income has increased, among other reasons. This is why I'm asking what I'm asking. The problem is that when people okay, let's say hypothetically that you were working and you were eligible at that point in time, right? But then the pandemic started, and so you got automatic coverage. You cannot be kicked off the rolls, even if you somehow made a lot more money, right? But what happened over the pandemic? Inflation happened, price gouging happened, cost of living rose, right? So whereas you may have been able to get, along okay with $20 an hour, right? Let's say you were making $15 an hour, and then you got a raise bump up to $20 an hour, right? But now, because of the pandemic, because of the price gouging that we see, because of the inflation that has happened, $20 an hour is now equal to $15 an hour that we had months ago. But the government didn't adjust their eligibility requirements. So let's say you're still making that $20 an hour. Guess what? Now you're no longer eligible, even though your cost of living has went higher and you're now struggling. So there's a bunch of people that are getting kicked off these roles who still do need it. They still need it. But the problem is, the cost of living has exploded. See, when I was making $20 an hour a couple of years ago, as somebody would say, if I was making $20 an hour a couple of years ago, eggs were $2.50 for a dozen, right? Now you're making $20 an hour still, but eggs are $8 a dozen. What changed? People's housing has went up. Rent has went up more than a quarter, more than 25% in that short period of time. So yeah, we're getting more as far as pay, but our housing costs, our food costs, our education costs, all these things cost more. Our fuel costs for transportation. So yeah, of course people are making more, but they're not making more. Right? So my thing is like, am I wrong? Like, why are these governments taking them off the rolls when in reality they shouldn't be taking them off the rolls? Because as far as the ratio, they're still up the shit creek without a paddle. That's the problem. And on top of it, you have all these people who need healthcare. They need healthcare. And the thing is, you're just going to kick them off. All because they said, well, the pandemic is over. So guess what? Yeah, you guys don't need it. And then on top of it, the problem is some people who do still need it, who are still at the poverty line, guess what? They are going to get kicked off because they may have didn't re-enroll or something like that. Maybe they didn't think they had to re-enroll. And so it puts risk of people like me who are disabled of getting kicked off of Medicaid. How many people may risk getting kicked off? This is why I don't even say Medicare for all anymore. I don't say Medicare for all anymore. I say full nationalization of our healthcare system. Full nationalization. Because that's what we need in this country. We do not need to sit here and go, well, the people who make more, they should just have their own private. No. Private insurance should not exist in this country. It should not exist. Come for me if you want to, but it should not exist. They are a middleman that actually determines some people's health outcomes. And most of the times, it's not good. They will sit there and they will diagnose you and say, oh, well, you don't really need this test. You don't really need this procedure because we don't think that you do. And then you end up dead. Because they didn't want to pay it out, even though you've been paying into it. And that's the problem with this healthcare system. They are a middleman keeping you in between you and your doctor. They should not exist. They're literally reaching into your health, into your body, and saying, this is what you need and this is what you don't. When in reality, that conversation needs to be happening between you and your doctor. And so something like Medicaid, which is moderately helpful for those of us who are near the poverty line or at the poverty line, or some of us that can't afford private insurance, but we make too much to have public insurance. Some of those people were held up by public insurance for a little while. Now they're going to be losing it, and they're going to be stuck in limbo because they make too much to afford one and they don't make enough to afford the other. And so guess what? Now you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are going to be stuck without health care, and now they are going to be screwed. And y'all wonder why. You wonder why we talk about we need to nationalize the healthcare system. And it is not an issue of individuals not being responsible enough. Get that bullshit out of your head. It is a systemic problem that requires a systemic solution. So you do not sit there and blame it on the individual, because guess what? It needs to be corrected on a system-wide scale. And so when we talk about, oh, well, people just don't make enough, so they need to be on Medicaid. No. Stop with the whole means testing crap. Means testing, all it does is put us in a situation where you have tiers within our economic system, within our medical system. That's what it is. The poor people are on Medicaid. The old people and some of the disabled people are on Medicare, right? But guess what? They're screwing everybody else that's on private insurance. And so now you're basically leaving them to the wolves. So now they either have to, if they are ineligible for Medicaid, then guess what? You're leaving them open to these leeches, to these jackals, these hyenas, these vultures, that are private insurance. And then they will get scalped every single month, every single paycheck, just to have some modicum of healthcare, while still being denied by these same companies. And you are one sickness, one virus, one accident away from winding up in the hospital. And then guess what? They're going to deny you care. They're going to deny you because they want to keep that money. They don't want to pay it out, because guess what? All they want is what's inside your wallet. And when you get sick and you really need them to pay that money out, they're going to be like, new phone, who this? That's how insurance companies operate. It is for profit. That's why the profit motive needs to be out of the medical system, period. And that includes pharma, medical device manufacturers, gyms. Yes, I'm coming for them too. Gyms should not be for profit. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Welcome to RBN. Have you subscribed yet? Have you liked yet? Nursing homes should not be for profit. Spas should not be for profit. Yes, if it has to do with your health overall, it should not be for profit. Absolutely not. Hell no. Nah. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That's the thing. And the problem is that people will say, well, you guys are going to be subjecting the doctors and nurses to slavery. They're going to be working for pennies. Absolutely not. Ask doctors and nurses in the UK if they are slaves. Go ahead. They can be paid well and they can have a great living. In fact, I will be the first to say, make sure our doctors and specialists, nurses, nurse practitioners, techs, and everybody who works in the hospital, including the cleaning crews, because they're the ones that keep us from these infections, that they are paid well. I'd rather my taxes go to pay these people so that they're paid well. Pay people enough to take the issue of money off the table. And then, guess what? Their incentives is that we need them less. Preventative care. Make publicly owned gyms accessible to all. Have neighborhood dietitians that focus on our health, that focus on community gardens, that make the proceeds from community gardens free and accessible to people. But the problem is, it doesn't make profit. And I just went on one of my rants. But the thing is that this is the problem with having a means-tested system like Medicaid. But even still, it still moderately helps many people, and people should not be kicked off the rolls. So now you're subjecting them from a not so great situation by being on Medicaid, because Medicaid doesn't cover everything, to a point where they are screwed even more. So let me show this video really quick. And this actually kind of gives us more. Oh, nope. And it talks about the Medicaid deadline. And not a lot of people are talking about this internationally. Like, I found one that talked about it internationally on PBS, by the way. But the problem is like news organizations like PBS and CBS will copyright strike if you show their videos on YouTube, like this, which is crazy because PBS literally stands for Public Broadcasting Station, and you can't show it. And then they'll copyright you. I'm like, why in the hell are they public broadcasting, but then they copyright you? Isn't it in the name, public broadcasting? But I digress. That gets on my nerves. Anywho, let's go.
Welcome back, Medicaid recipients. You can consider this a last call to make sure that you're enrolled and to receive your benefits. Based on a new federal law, continuous Medicaid eligibility will end tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. And that means in a couple of days in April, the state of Texas will begin removing people who no longer qualify. So to make sure you're covered, I spoke with the Coastal Bend Food Bank today for more information. Take a look. You might want to check your mail if you don't do so regularly. The state has been reminding Medicaid recipients to renew their benefits or they could be asking them to provide more information to keep them on the National Health Insurance Program. Angela Gonzalez is the social services lead for the Coastal Bend Food Bank, and she helps people apply for community resources. She said some of her clients weren't aware that they needed to update their Medicaid information to ensure their coverage.
They were shocked, like, well, they haven't asked me for anything for years, because it's just automatically renewing.
That's because of the pandemic. The federal government declared a public health emergency and relaxed Medicaid rules to allow more people to stay on that program. But as the public health emergency comes to an end, so does continuous eligibility. For the first time in 3 years, many Texans who received the health insurance will have to requalify and renew by Friday, March 31st. According to state data, the number of people using the healthcare program has grown by about 2 million in the Lone Star State.
It's important because it takes the load off of them financially. So if anyone is low income and can qualify for Medicaid, they should definitely apply.
As case navigators, Gonzalez and her partner at the Social Services Department can help with that and even show you other community resources you may need.
We're really good about telling them what they need to help them get approved or to keep their benefits coming by helping them do that renewal.
All right, listen up. If you do need help, you can call the Coastal Bend Food Bank at 887-6291 and get connected with the Social Services Department. You can also renew or check your availability online. And to do that, visit our website for more information, christv.com.
People are suffering. And this is just not fair. All because there's this ideology that thinks that you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that the only thing that matters is individual responsibility. When in reality, nobody wants to talk about community responsibility. And it really just pisses me off, the fact that people are continuously suffering. And then they even get just a small crumbs of something that will help them. And then it gets ripped away from them. And then even if we were to get out in the streets, we would get our heads bashed in by the police because they don't want people to have what they are worthy of. Healthcare, housing, food, a good education, a healthy environment. But they don't want you to have that. It's just work, work, work. It's this robotization, this mechanization of human beings for the sole purpose of profit. This is why they want to increase the use of AI in order to create profit. This is why they want to increase the use of automation for profit, because robots don't need healthcare. Robots don't need time off. Robots don't need a work-life balance. See, they've been trying to roboticize you, a worker, by giving you less pay, less benefits, less time off. because that's what they want to get out of you. But then they don't have to pay for you at all, or very little, except for operation costs, if they get robots. We live in a failed state. That's for certain. This is why I would love to see more mutual aid groups, especially ones that focus on more small time medical care, like, clinics and things like that help people. It can't do the same work as a hospital, but at least if, there's some things that can be more preventative for people and help in some situations, almost like a kind of like an urgent care type of situation, that would be feasible for the people. By the way, Rome is finishing building the library. He's doing a last ditch fundraising. So if you guys have not yet, or if you guys wish to donate, just $ Tour for the Poor on Cash App. You guys can go there. That's the first thing I can think of. But yeah, I think we really need something better, because you're worthy of it. So that's what's going on. So those of you who are on Medicaid right now, who are receiving Medicaid, make sure to check to see if you're still eligible. If there was a letter or a notice that you need to reapply today so that goes in tomorrow. Reapply. Check in on your elderly. Well, if they're elderly, they're probably getting Medicare, so they might be okay. But if they're close to elderly, but they haven't gotten to that point, like, I'll put it this way: if they're under 65, check on your people. If you have people in your life that are low income, check on them to make sure that they're still enrolled, that they're still eligible. If you know people who are disabled, check in on them. Just make sure people around you are okay, because there are people who are going to fall by the wayside in this. Millions of people. Yeah. Check on them. So yeah, that is that. Let me go to the chat. I think I have a super chat. Earl says, give me a high fructose corn syrup salt lick hot dog from the gas station, because that's the only place that serves food for miles and miles around my house. Food delivery won't get to my neighborhood. Sad, these food deserts. Mark says, my test, if healthcare should be profit driven, is if a person trips and gets hurt, you just help that person. You don't ask for payment. Transfer that attitude to the healthcare system. Humanity. Thank you so very much for that, Mark. Beautifully spoken. Christopher says, a lot of the people simply won't know until they're personally affected. unfortunately, and this is one of the reasons why, share the stream, by the way, so that people are aware. And we'll clip this as well and share the clip if you guys want to, so that people won't have to, fast forward all the way through. But share this with everybody. Wow, creative experiments. Creative experiment says, one time I talked to an urgent care receptionist and she said she didn't have medical insurance. We live in a failed state when people who work in the medical field don't have insurance, even though they work in the medical field. Wow. Mm-mm. Thank you so very much for the super sticker, Sweary Fairy, bestie of the best. All right. Yeah. Let me head to the Rockfin. The Rock is on fire. Let me share the screen. You'll never find. Okay. Mary O'Brien says, total government healthcare means that people like Fauci will be making all your health decisions. Not necessarily true, but it depends on if the government is ran by the people, by the way. They say if you don't take 10 jabs of the, no emergency care for you, plus face it, the docs load up people with all kinds of the most unnecessary, untested meds and treatments. But that's because of a profit system. See, what I'm saying is make it devoid of having profit and need for profit. See, when I say nationalization of the entire healthcare system, Mary, I'm also talking about the pharmaceutical industry too. So therefore, there's no need for them to make profit. So if there's no need for them to make profit, that means they're not going to be pushing any type of jabs that aren't fully tested and vetted in, the process given to us. I'm going towards a Cuban model, right? That's what I'm talking about. So then when we do have medical directors over our country that are not like Fauci, then guess what? Then we can actually have trust because they do it with the mode of making sure that we're healthy so that we need the healthcare system even less. So this is why we have to get out of this capitalist mindset of, oh, well, if we do this within the government, then this is what's going to happen. No. See, here's the thing. We're talking about completely overturning and changing the system from the bottom up. Getting out of the capitalist system. That means having a nationalized healthcare system so that people will not have to focus on treatment. We focus more on prevention. That's what I'm talking about. So when I say total nationalization, I mean that it is completely devoid of profits. No profits whatsoever. So then when there is jabs that are given to us, it is for prevention, and they have been fully researched, fully tested, so that the phrase becomes a belief within our system. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And they're focused on curing because there's no mode to push for profit. And then on top of that, all the tests will be necessary because the doctor will see them as necessary. And they won't push for unnecessary tests to increase the hospital bills, because if we have full nationalization, that means that the hospitals will not be for profit at all. They will not be working for profit. They'll be working to keep as many people out of the hospital, meaning they'll be focusing more on prevention, which means that will diminish the amount of unnecessary tests, meds, and treatments. It's about prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. This is why I also said spas and gyms also need to be included in that. And people will look at me like I'm fucking crazy. Guess what? I am. I'm crazy about the people. That's what it is. Thanks for your comment, Mary. Because Mary says having healthcare at least partially private allows choice. The thing is that, look, that choice that you say is choice to have a middleman between you and your doctor. Do you want a middleman between you and your doctor? You got to think about things like this, because especially if they're just for profit. Because capitalism does not breed innovation. It breeds degradation. Thousands of people die every single year because they do not have adequate health care. How many people are also underinsured because they cannot afford their premiums? And every single time we try to put a bridle on capitalism, it shakes that bridle off, and then it keeps going the direction that it goes, where it scalps people day in, day out, every single time. We put protections in place, and guess what? They bought off our government and they've removed those protections, and now look at us. This is why profit has to be taken out of healthcare entirely. Entirely. Including the medical device manufacturers, including pharma, including outpatient, including rehabilitation services. All of it. All of it. I'm including mental health in this too. No profit. No profit motive whatsoever. All right. So thank you so very much for all the comments on Rockfin. Thanks, Bill Bradley. Bill says there is no guardrails to capitalism that can resolve the falling rate of profit, no matter what a government does. Jamie, you're after my own heart. No privatization of any public services. Thank you. So, did you like the stream? Are you subscribed? Welcome. Thank you. So, by the way, I will be doing the reading soon of Assata Shakur's autobiography on my channel. So if you guys have not subscribed to my channel, I also do readings and I discuss what is being read on my channel. Go ahead and ask people. Sweary Fairy, you're in the chat. Go ahead. Let people know. I also do the readings and then I discuss what I'm reading. So if you guys would like to come to my channel, it's also in the description below, a link to my channel. So you guys want to go there. So I do readings for Assata Shakur's autobiography. And then I will also be continuing this book by Dr. Devon Price It's called Laziness Does Not Exist. So I'll be continuing this reading for this book as well this week. Janice, you put in the super chat. Let me look. I was so busy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to miss you. I miss Janet. No. Hang on. Where is it? I try to make sure I catch them all like Pokemon, but some just get away from me. Let me check. See it. Boom. Janet, insurance companies are literally death panels. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank God. Woo, thank God you said something. Yes, they are. Because they literally decide whether you live or die. This is why private health insurance should not exist. They are the death panels. And by the way, Obamacare just directs you to those death panels. Obamacare is trash. It is trash. And it gives all these death panels, it sends people to them because they have no choice. Oh, yeah, this is a good point, Bill. Says, I'm not sure why it's so hard for many to understand that the foundations of a workers' movement will be found in people's places of work. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for all that. I'm sorry, Janice. Love you. All right. Thanks for the hearts, gamer. So, now, besides those books, I will be getting into news stories later this week. And, oh, by the way, I have Jesse Jett coming on this Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern on my channel. So we're going to be talking to Jesse Jett this Saturday as well. So I'll have to be doing an extra stream this week. So I hope you all can make it there as well. All y'all are invited. Jesse Jett is not only an activist, but also an artist. And so we'll be getting into his art and his evolution and how he uses his art to talk about things in order to open people's minds to having what we are worthy of, which is housing for all, healthcare for all, education for all, and making sure that we have a clean and good environment and having a government that actually works for us by making sure that we build it from the ground up. I'll be having Jesse Jett on. I am so excited to do this weekend. We were supposed to do it a couple weeks back, but he had an emergency, so we're going to be we rescheduled it for this Saturday. I can't wait. So thank you so very much. Yep. All One Same says art is essential. Absolutely, art is essential. By the way, I just want to tell y'all. Okay, y'all want to hear a good song? There was an artist by the name of Miss Nina Simone, and she did a song called "Feeling Good." Look, if you guys have a car, jump in your car, go driving, especially if it's sunny out. Turn up the volume, put that song on, and once them horns come in, baby, yo, that song gonna make you feel good. Or if you're at home, put your earphones on, or if you're in your house and you're alone and you ain't got to worry about, disturbing nobody, blast them speakers, put that song on. Nina Simone's Feeling Good. Put that on. And once them horns come on, dum, da dum, da dum, da 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 dum. Look, I'm telling you that song will make you smile ear to ear. I'm telling you. Put that song on, and every single time y'all sing it, think of this face. Okay, that was scary. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, just a recommendation for you guys, just to feel good today. But anyway, mwah, 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 mwah. Thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. And water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Continuously support the workers. Join some organizations that focus on the people and the workers, not politicians. Okay. Politicians are just there to steal your money. Organizations that actually help the people from the ground up, make sure to focus on those. Give mutual aid, and also be good to yourself too. You matter. That's also very important. Never forget to be kind to yourself. I love you. Mwah. Forehead kisses. Have a good day.